Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. How you doing this week, Chip?
Well, I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
My granddaughter is 6 weeks old today, and I brought her home for the first time with my son and daughter-in-law on Friday, and I need a nap right after the show.
There you go. 6 weeks, you don't get much sleep.
So far, 4 hours continuous is their record.
I remember those days well, and quite frankly, I don't miss them all that much. I like getting a full night's sleep.
She's still a little miracle. What can I say?
So we have a special guest today, Sarah Poriss, who is an attorney, and she is going to be taking us through credit reports, credit scores. If our listeners remember, a number of weeks back, we talked about how to protect your identity, and your credit report is part of that. So we're going to be continuing on that and learning more about what your credit report says, what a credit score is, how it affects you, and what you can do about it. So, Sarah, welcome.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Chip.
So, Sarah, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, I have been a consumer protection attorney for about 17 years, and I started working for a small firm in Rocky Hill, Connecticut that did all consumer protection work. After about a year there, I found I was focused solely on the personal, I call it the personal financial crisis stuff, the people who were being harassed by debt collectors, people who were being sued for credit card debt, unpaid credit card balances, people who had identity theft. So I was looking at their credit reports, and people who saw a major change in their credit score or needed to improve their credit score to purchase a home or a car or something like that. So I found myself suing debt collectors and suing credit bureaus and suing auto finance companies for the way they reported information on credit reports or for harassing people, as the case may be. And when I went out on my own, I continued to review credit reports for people and work with them on disputing information on their reports that they deemed inaccurate or out of date. So I read a credit report like a doctor takes a pulse, right? People are embarrassed. What's funny is I always ask people, when's the last time you saw your credit report? And they go, I don't want to see my credit report. Like, I don't want to look at it. And my response is, well, everyone else is looking at your credit report. You may as well see what's on there as well. So I recommend everybody check their credit once a year, just for accuracy, if nothing more. I don't really care. The dirty secret about what I do is I personally don't really care about credit scores, because when I'm talking with someone about who wants to buy a house or buy a car, I know credit scores are important, but what your score is relative to you. So if you say I have a 650, that may be fantastic for you, but it might be terrible for the next guy. And so your score is what it is for yourself. I look at accuracy. So when people look at their credit report, they should be reviewing credit reports for accuracy. So that's kind of an overview of how I approach credit reports and credit scores.
Well, let's take a step back, start with some basics, because people hear about credit score and credit report all the time. But what exactly is a credit score? How is it determined? And what information is in your credit report?
All right, so a credit report, I'll start there, is a compilation. There's three major credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And think of them as like Chevy, Dodge, and Ford, okay? They kind of produce the same thing with some variations. And they compile information on you, computer-generated reports that are a compilation of your use of credit. So if you have a home mortgage, your monthly payment history and the amount you owe and your monthly payment amount will be reported to the credit bureaus. If you have credit cards, the name of your account and how much you owe and what you pay typically per month and whether you pay on time will be reported to the credit bureau. If you have medical debt that's gone into collection, if you're behind on utilities, if you've had a bankruptcy or if you have a tax lien, generally that information is either provided to the credit bureaus or obtained by the credit bureaus so that they can put together, a several-page profile of your use of credit. And the purpose of that is so that if you, Chip or Eric, want to lend me money, you're going to look at my payment history on my account. And if I've paid everybody on time, I'm a good credit risk, right? If you lend me money, I'm likely to pay you back too. If I owe, if I'm maxed out on every account that I have open, you're thinking, maybe she's borrowing money from us to kind of get out of trouble with someone else, or maybe she's gonna at some point not be able to pay us back because she owes all these people so much money too. So it's a general financial profile of how you use credit. That's sort of a summary. A credit score is then a grade you're given. We aren't really given the exact formula. Like it's a proprietary formula used by, again, 2 or 3 different credit scoring companies. They compile a score on you based on several factors, and each factor is weighed a little differently. So one of the major important factors is paying bills on time. So on-time payment of bills is going to help your score, and if you don't pay bills on time, it's going to really hurt you. Use of credit. So if you have a credit card that's a $5,000 limit, and you're using $4,900 of your $5,000 limit, you're going to be hurt in your credit score. But if you have a card with a $5,000 limit and you're using $500, that's going to look better. Age of accounts. So if you're 80 years old and you've used credit for 50 years, you've got a 50-year credit history, that's going to weigh in your favor. If you're 21 years old and you've only got a 1 or 2-year credit history, you're going to have to build up. You're going to have to get older and have more of a history there. Any other questions about that?
Oh, yeah, you had mentioned that there's 3 different credit reporting bureaus. Correct me if I'm wrong, but each of these bureaus has a slightly different formula for figuring out your credit score. So you could have different credit scores from each bureau.
Correct, and I'm going to just split the hair here a little bit and just say that each of these bureaus uses a different company's credit scoring system, or there's a subsidiary, right? So there's FICO and there's Beacon and there's a couple of other names. So I mean, again, that's not so important. When you get a credit report, you can get free credit reports, but you have to pay for your score generally, just so you know, unless you're with some company that you've given your credit card number to obtain that information. And yes, I agree that you look at each report, you're going to find slightly different information, and you're going to get a slightly different score. One of the differences I notice in information across the 3 credit bureaus is, for example, TransUnion's really good at this, Experian is really good at that, and Equifax is really good at the other thing. So like Experian will have the most variations on your name spelling. Like, so this is what happened when my husband and I bought a house. Someone had spelled his last name wrong, and it got onto his credit report, so he had to prove what his real name spelling was. That probably happened with me too. And the reason Experian, for example, likes to show the maximum number of name spelling variations is in case you're trying to borrow money under someone else's name or a variation of your name. And so Experian, that's their thing, right? They can sell their product to people who care about that. So I'm trying to break open the myth that these credit bureaus know what they're doing, that they're perfect, that they have systems in place to prevent inaccuracy. None of this is correct generally. They're big, huge companies. They take the information that companies give them, right? Experian just takes your name spelling from when you go up to the register at Macy's and apply for a card because the clerk said, hey, would you like to apply for a card and get a discount today? And you go, yeah, and they spell your name wrong. Well, now Experian has that incorrect name spelling in their records forever. So that's their thing. So there is differences among the credit bureaus for that reason. They're competing amongst each other to have certain information.
Yeah, and I found this year, my parents were both very old and we were trying to refinance their house. And going in to get information or to unfreeze credit reports can sometimes be a nightmare. And I know that, as you said, you can go in and get your free credit report every year. And the bottom line is, I think if you get that and you get it printed out, it's going to help you a whole lot, because the first thing that's going to happen if something's wrong when you call in there is they have to verify you. And they're going to ask you questions about a credit card that you had 5 or 7 years ago that you know nothing about unless you have some of that information in front of you. So can you tell us what's a good set of records to keep just in case you have to do that for yourself, so that you have this information in front of you, and also you'll be able to see if something's wrong by printing it out too.
Right. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com. That's where you get the truly no charge credit reports. Okay, annualcreditreport.com. And if you go online, you do have to sort of answer a quiz. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, Chip, is you have to verify it's you. I think 2 out of the 3 credit bureaus have some kind of multi function verification that it's you, so that some ex of yours or your no good brother can't go online and obtain a copy of your credit report. So I actually have a hard time getting my report online because there's so many bills I pay online. I don't even know what the minimum payment is, and sometimes the question is, how much is your car payment? And it's like I don't really know because I might pay more than my regular car. You know what I'm saying? So I think one way to assure that you're able to access your information or the information of someone like your parents would be to write down the accurate information of like what your monthly payments are and what your current balances are. So then you know. The other funny thing they ask you is like a street you've lived on or a phone number you've had, things like that. So yes, if you're obtaining your credit report online um, through annualcreditreport.com, you do have to submit to some quizzing, and you should know 100% what your own financial information is because that's what they're going to quiz you on in order to prove it's you. You can obtain credit reports through the mail. Thank goodness you can obtain it through the mail. You can even call in and give your information over the phone. So if you go on the annualcreditreport.com website, you can request the form and download it and then fill it out and mail it in and obtain your credit reports that way. So it's a little easier. I recommend putting a photocopy of a driver's license or a photocopy of a current utility bill with your current accurate address in there as proof of address, and I also recommend sending that form in via certified mail with return receipt. So you're assured they got it and they know that you know they got it, so they can't throw it in the junk mail pile or throw it away. They have to comply with your request for a free credit report. Um, Hopefully I answered that question, Chip.
Part of the problem that we had was that they had frozen their credit reports, and so they had to unfreeze them so that they could so that the bank could access them for the refinancing. And they were having trouble doing that, and we were actually calling the credit companies themselves to get these things
Uh-huh.
unfrozen. And they were
Got it.
asking the questions that were on that. And fortunately, I was sitting down with a very good banker who knew exactly what to do with this kind of stuff. And I had a paper copy of one of their credit reports with there, which we were just reading stuff off of. So, talk
Right.
to us a little bit about whether you should be freezing your credit report or not, and different scenarios where you should do that, but understanding that if you do freeze them and you have to unfreeze them at some time, talk a little bit about that too, because
It could
we
be
found that
troublesome.
to be a
It's
nightmare.
it sounds like your parents, who I'm assuming are maybe you say they're in their 80s, or even older, that they needed their credit frozen for a particular reason, either to protect it from themselves, because sometimes older people can be more susceptible to things, and maybe they ask that their credit files be frozen in order so that they wouldn't be tempted or others would not be tempted to take advantage of them. Um, or they had been a victim of some kind of fraud and they froze their accounts. But yeah, there's a fraud alert system. You can put something like a 100 word or a 400 word statement on your credit. You can ask that you be contacted before any any new activity, or any new inquiry or any new application for credit be made under your social security number. Um, I don't have a ton of experience with that, Chip. Just some personal experience similar to yours as well, where I wasn't a victim of fraud, but remember, like the state of Connecticut, some employee lost a laptop, so I was provided like credit freezing services for a while, and I had to go through like multi-factor verification if I needed credit. Um, so I had that problem as well. But it
Yeah,
can be good to do the fraud alert or the message on your credit to say, don't allow anyone to apply for credit without calling me, in order to protect yourself. And I'm seeing my in-laws age, and these phone calls come in, and they say, and fill in the blank with whatever fraud of the day is popular. And I'm concerned that my in-laws, my mother-in-law in particular, sometimes thinks every email she gets is serious, or every phone call she receives is a real email or a real phone call that she needs to